Hi everyone. Recently I've been sent a few messages asking me the differences between shoes like the Boston, Adios, Adizero Pro and Adios Pro. So I thought I'd do a quick video going through my Adizero rotation and let you know what distances, what races I use certain shoes for, going through some of the tech spec so that you might get a better understanding of the Adizero range and then know what shoes might suit what you're going to use them for. So we're going to start with the Boston 9. The reason being it's become one of my workhorse shoes. Out of these three shoes on this side, it's got the most amount of boost cushioning, so it's great for getting loads of mileage in. I do everything from sort of easy recovery runs to tempo runs in them, and it is capable and it's responsive enough that you can do some quicker sessions if you did want to use it for that. You could do some sessions where you're hitting close to 5k, 10k pace. So yeah, it's a really versatile shoe. So yeah, I'll kind of go through some of the tech now. The upper is an engineered mesh upper, so kind of similar to these other three shoes. It's really lightweight and breathable, nice and soft. So yeah, I always find with the Adizero range that they fit me really well. I've got relatively narrow feet and they do tend to come up a little bit narrower and smaller than the rest of the Adidas range. So most people would go up a half size compared to their normal kind of everyday shoes or some of the kind of more cushion shoes. So that's something worth mentioning. In terms of the heel counter, it's nice and solid. There's a decent amount of padding there, but obviously not a huge amount. With a lot of these shoes, they are designed for racing or hitting faster paces, so you don't want a huge amount of padding and kind of extra weight on the shoe. In terms of the midsole, it has boost and light strike. The reason it has boost and light strike is that if it just had boost, it would be a little bit soft and not that responsive. So by having that light strike EVA, it just makes it a little bit more stable and more responsive. Yeah, I find it a really well balanced shoe. Like I say, I use it for a lot of mileage, and you can get loads of miles out of them. They're really durable, and the materials that they're made out of last for a long time. In terms of the outsole, it has the trusty Continental rubber and lots of it, kind of through the heel, midfoot and forefoot. So depending on where you land, you're going to get a good amount of grip. And then there's a good solid torsion system, which gives it kind of that rigidity and that responsiveness as well. So you can see kind of flexes in the forefoot here. Yeah, I love running in the shoe. I used to do a lot more mileage in the Adios and sort of struggled for a while to convert into the Boston, but in the last kind of 6 to 12 months, I've been doing a lot more mileage in the Boston. So yeah, like I say, you can get a little bit more mileage out of it than the Adios. So great workhorse shoe. Something worth mentioning is that if you're in a more heavily cushioned shoe for a lot more of your other mileage, this could be a racing shoe for you. It's all relative. It just depends kind of what your range or what your rotation looks like, really. Onto the Adios. Over the last 10 years, kind of I've been doing a loads of mileage in the Adios and the Boston. This was my go-to shoe for marathon racing. I think I've done around 20 marathons in the last 5-6 years, and this was a shoe that I would race all my marathons on the road in. They're nice and lightweight and responsive, which I love that feeling. But there's still a decent amount of cushioning that your legs don't feel like they're too beaten up after doing that distance, for me anyway. So yeah, it felt really well balanced, and obviously a lot of elite runners over the last 5 to 10 years were racing marathons in this before the emergence of the kind of carbon shoes or the super cushioned marathon racing shoes. So in terms of technology in this, it has a Cellar mesh upper, so feels a little bit more synthetic than kind of the softer engineered mesh on the Boston, but still fits really well. Nice and snug across the midfoot because it does have kind of a relatively gusseted tongue. It is kind of built in there, which gives you a nice snug kind of lockdown. you still have a decent amount of room in the toe box, which is good obviously when you're running your toe splay, so you want a little bit of room at the front for your feet to heat up and expand. In terms of the midsole, again, it has boost and light strike, the same as the Boston, but a little less of it. In terms of kind of, the design of it, there's a little bit more light strike kind of through the midsole. You can see here through the midfoot. And this just feels a little bit more responsive than the Boston. So, like I say, I do a lot of easy recovery runs and tempo runs in this. I would tend to do more kind of tempo to threshold sessions in the Adios, just because there's a little bit more of a pop off the forefoot. A big kind of part of that is the slightly different torsion system, which kind of helps to make it nice and responsive. You can see again, kind of flex point up on the forefoot. In terms of the outsole, this has Adiwear in the heel, which is a high abrasion rubber, and then Continental kind of through the forefoot. So again, really durable. I've had pairs of Adios in the past that have lasted for over 1,000 miles. So really, really durable. Obviously, most brands or most people would recommend that you change shoes every 500 to 600 miles. But for me, I guess, I'm relatively efficient. I'm a neutral runner. So I've been able to get that much mileage out of certain pairs and felt like they've still been okay to do a little bit more than that. So really durable, and again, can be versatile. You can still do kind of long runs in them. Like I say, I've run marathons in them, but also nice and responsive if you're doing some more sessions kind of around 5k, 10k pace if you wanted to. So then we're now on to kind of the shoes that now have carbon components in them. So this is the Adizero Pro. In terms of the upper of the Adizero Pro, again, it has a Cellar Mesh upper, and the gusseted tongue is stitched in. It feels like it's a little more snug over the midfoot in comparison to the Adios and the Boston. It's stitched in a little bit higher up onto the upper there. But I really love running in these shoes. They feel so propulsive. And I use these for kind of those sessions where you are hitting more like your 5k, 10k paces, because of the carbon plate in the midsole. It does feel nice and propulsive. In terms of the midsole, it has light strike and boost. So obviously boost provides a good amount of cushioning and shock absorption. Light strike, a little bit firmer, gives you that extra responsiveness. And then the full length Carbitex carbon plate kind of within that midsole does feel really nice and responsive. And again, you can see in terms of flex point, kind of it does bend a little bit, but it's more when you're kind of right off the toe. So it feels super smooth. And I really enjoy running in them. I find them still relatively soft, but they feel really smooth when you are hitting those quicker paces. So I've been really enjoying them. In terms of the outsole, this has Adiwear right in the heel, alongside DSP, which stands for dual stencil processing. So kind of these extra bits of rubber back here, and then a lot of Continental rubber in the forefoot, because when you're kind of tending to hit those quicker paces, a lot of people will be landing more midfoot, forefoot. So loads of rubber in the forefoot, really good grip. And Continental, it's just so durable, and it's great that the whole Adizero range pretty much has Continental kind of on the bottom. Really good in wet conditions, and obviously in the dry as well. So so we've kind of gone from like easy recovery to tempo, sort of tempo to threshold. But if you did want to do kind of half marathons and marathons in them, why not? And then Adizero Pro, like I say, sort of close to sort of when you're hitting your 5k, 10k paces. In those shorter, sharper sessions, you do really notice the pop. So these two, I kind of go between, just depending on the real specifics of the sessions. They kind of are quite close to each other. It just depends on what you like the feel of, whether you want that carbon plate in there and to feel that extra kind of pop off the forefoot, a little bit more responsive. Next shoe we're going on to is the Adios Pro. I've done a longer video on this one already, so check that one out if you want a kind of more in-depth overview of it. In terms of the upper, again, it's got Cellar Mesh, and the same kind of gusseted tongue you can kind of see there as the Adizero Pro. Something to mention with both the Adizero Pro and the Adios Pro, they both have extra eyelets. So if your foot is a little bit broader and you need to open it up a little bit more, you can change the lacing. So that's really good. Accommodates for kind of more people. Some people do find the Adizero range just a little bit narrow. I kind of love running in this shoe. It's just so responsive. We've gone from, these are all really responsive shoes, but we've kind of worked our way up in responsiveness, I would say. But this is really geared towards those longer distance races, more like the half marathon and marathon, just because of the huge amount of cushioning through the midsole. So yeah, it's not Boost or Light Strike. This is Light Strike Pro. So it's a different compound altogether compared to the Light Strike. It's really responsive, nice and lightweight. So yeah, you've got a huge amount of cushioning in there, so it's going to save your legs when you're running those longer distances out on the roads, save you from that impact. Within the kind of 2 layers of Light Strike Pro foam, there's 2 wedges. There is a carbon heel plate and then energy rods through the forefoot, 1 to match each metatarsal. So it gives you a nice natural kind of toe off. And like I say, it's super responsive when you lock into around half marathon, marathon pace. It just feels super smooth. Yeah, and you do notice a real difference kind of if you do quite a lot of running or mileage in these and then save these for marathon specific sessions or kind of race day. Obviously we haven't had too many races, but I did wear them for the virtual London Marathon and really enjoyed them for that. In terms of the outsole on this, it doesn't have Continental, but it's a really nice sticky rubber kind of in the heel and forefoot. In the other pair of Adios Pro that I've been running a lot more in recently, there's just been a little bit of wear kind of in the heel. But yeah, they've actually been really durable, and I've done over 700 kilometers in that other pair, and now kind of keeping these for race day and kind of trying to use these more. In terms of kind of the tech, I'm going to go into some of the kind of details like the weights, heel to toe drops, and then the prices. So the Boston, it weighs in at 235 grams. And for all of these weights, it's normally around an 8.5 sample size. The heel to toe drop is 10 millimeters. So it's 26 in the heel and 16 in the forefoot. And these cost £120. I think that's a really good price point for the amount of miles you get out of it. It's a great workhorse shoe, and I think if you haven't tried a Boston, I really recommend it. I think a lot of people have, and they're kind of really loyal and they know what to expect from the Boston. It's been great for so many years, and it's only been kind of tweaked, so you kind of know what you're going to get. So love the shoe. The Adios, it weighs in at 224 grams. The heel to toe drop is 10 mil again, but it's 23 to 13. So this was 26 to 16, 23 to 13, and comes in at £130, so just £10 more. But like I say, feels a little bit more responsive than the Boston. But again, you can do so much mileage out of it. And I've probably had between 10 and 20 pairs, if not more, pairs of Adios, and just love them. Such a great shoe. The Adizero Pro, that weighs in at 235 grams. It's pretty much the same as the Boston. The heel to toe drop is 8.5, so a little bit lower. It's 21 in the heel and 12.5 in the forefoot, and these cost £160, which I still think is quite reasonable because of the full length Carbon-Tex carbon plate and things like the Cellar Mesh upper, the amount of Continental, Adiwear and DSP, Boost and Light Strike. So great shoe for when you're trying to hit those paces, like race paces, and whether you want to use them for kind of race day. So I think once we do have a few more 5Ks and 10Ks or park runs, I'm going to be using this a lot for those kind of 5Ks, I think. And then the Adios Pro, this weighs in at 225 grams, so just a little bit lighter than the Adizero Pro. And the heel to toe drop is 8.5 on this as well. So it's 39.5 in the heel and 31 in the forefoot, and these are £170, and that's obviously because of the carbon heel plate, carbon infused energy rods, Cellar Mesh upper, Light Strike Pro, and obviously built for race day, and we've seen so many amazing results last year from the elite athletes breaking world records. So yeah, great shoe, but good to kind of keep them stashed away for races and when you're trying to beat your personal bests. In terms of kind of showing you the differences in sort of stack height or cushioning, you can see here kind of if you compare the Adizero Pro and the Adios Pro up next to each other, I think, yeah, there's basically, well, there's a lot more cushioning kind of even in the forefoot of the Adios Pro compared to even like the heel of the Adizero Pro. If you think the Adios Pro is 31mm in the forefoot, whereas the Adizero Pro is 21mm in the heels. So yeah, that's the biggest difference when you're kind of thinking about kind of shock absorption and that dampening for half marathons and marathons, and you really do notice it. So yeah, I hope that's kind of helped to explain some of the differences and why I use them for certain distances. So like I say, a kind of quick recap: easy / recovery runs, 2 sort of tempo runs. But again, depends on your range, what you might use it for. The Adios, kind of more tempo to threshold, but obviously can be used for racing marathons and half marathons. Again, quite versatile and you can get a lot of mileage out of it. Adizero Pro, just a little bit more propulsive because of the full length carbon plate. So again, really smooth and really nice when you're doing kind of those sessions around 5k, 10k pace. And then the Adios Pro, when you're racing half marathons and you want that cushioning, just to provide that kind of dampening effect to save your legs so you don't get beaten up and your recovery rate doesn't take a hit. So yeah, something worth mentioning is the other shoes within the Adizero range. You've got things like the Takumi Sen, which are more minimal and lighter. They would be good for kind of track sessions and kind of mile races, 3Ks, up to kind of 5k, and again, people will race half marathons and marathons in that shoe as well. If you prefer light strike, because it's that a little bit firmer, some people like that kind of extra responsive feel, then the alternatives to things like the Adios and the Adizero Pro, you're kind of looking at the Adizero RC and even the SL20. I know some of the guys in America, the Tin Man Elite guys, they tend to prefer light strike a little bit because it just feels a little bit firmer. It's kind of more of a normal EVA compared to Boost, which they find a little bit soft, but I've kind of transitioned from the old Adios into the new one with Boost, and I've got used to that, so I quite like that softness. So hence why I go for the shoes with Boost in them. But yeah, if you have any questions, do comment or DM me, and I can kind of give you more advice if you're looking at certain shoes or you're racing certain distances and you're not quite sure which ones to go for. But yeah, hopefully this video is kind of giving you some tips or insights into the technologies in a lot of the Adizero shoes and how I use them.